We continue to focus on what the failures of Silicon Valley Bank in California and a couple of others could mean for you and your money. There has been a particular focus here on small businesses and the startup community, which heavily relied on that California bank. Joining us live to talk about that is Matthew Pelkey, Managing Director of Colligan Law. The firm has represented many of Western New York's startups in recent years. And Matthew, I know you published this blog earlier today saying basically that the startup community will be disproportionately impacted by SVB's collapse. I wonder if you can explain to us how you view that.
Yeah, so if you look at the percentage of startups and tech companies that work with SVB, it's about a little over 50%. So we are talking, just based on those numbers, a significant percentage. Then you look at the fact that, a lot of the venture lending occurs through SVP. They also have direct equity investments as part of their bank. And so, there was so much concentration there. General partners use the bank for lines of credit as they make investments with their funds. So you really had a significant portion of the ecosystem contained in there. And I don't think, while we have shored up the deposit accounts, I don't think we fully understand the impact that some of these secondary products, lending in particular, is quite going to have on the startup community yet. I think we're still going to have to wait and see how that develops.
Yeah, we've heard a lot over the past couple of days about so-called regional banks, right? They're not the big four that are too big to fail. They sort of fall in a lower category. And there's been, some of them have lost a lot of their stock price. There have been some worries surrounding some of them. Do you see that extending into the future, that kind of worry with these regional banks?
So, I think, the good news is we saw a lot of them, gain some of that ground back today. In the markets. I think it's a fair question to be asking. I do think it's likely limited to these sort of niche banks that had very low insured accounts. If you look at even Signature Bank, over 90% or something like that was, uninsured accounts. They were providing, loan or, account services and banking for, a lot of lawyers, trust and IOLA accounts. That was a nice panicking moment Saturday morning, as well as commercial real estate and professional practices. So I think that seems to be where the risk is where, you could potentially have a run on the bank because you just have so many accounts that aren't insured. If you're working with a bank that has a significant retail presence, that risk is much, much lower.
Finally, I know you're heavily involved with startups in our region. We think of 43 North and what a boom that's been for Western New York. How important is it that these startups and a lot of these small businesses writ large have access to the capital that they need to grow and the worry right now with all this uncertainty?
If we look at the startup community 10 years ago, it was you could count it on a single hand how many deals were happening. It was 3 to 5 million. We're now talking over $200 million worth of activity in just capital alone. We're not talking about the total impact these companies are having. It has grown exponentially in a little less than 10 years. So that is a sizable impact in the West New York economy. And maybe they aren't directly impacted, but you might have vendors, you might have credit lines that are impacted. There's a lot of uncertainty around that. And I think as a whole, this is going to put some continued pressure on a capital market and a segment of the economy that has been struggling the last year and is likely going to make it even more difficult to access that capital, which could mean that, you're going to see a little bit of slowdown in that space.
Something definitely worth following as we kind of work our way, hopefully, out of this little mini crisis we've been dealing with. Matthew Pelkey is Managing Director of Colligan Law. Thanks for coming on. We appreciate your time.
Happy to be here. Thank you.